Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about my adventures with Superman, Season 1, Episode 2. Another great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, I thought it was really interesting how we started off, obviously going back in time. So it seems like we might get that over the course of the show. Maybe it's just like these two episodes that kind of shows a younger Clark. I don't know how much they're going to really dive into like the Smallville of it all, the Lana Lang of it all, so stuff like that. But we get introduced to Jonathan and Martha, and so the reason why the ship the way, because I brought it up last episode, I was like, is the ship like still buried? Yeah, they never brought it into the farmhouse because it's not like a small ship. It looks massive. And in fact, later on when Clark's digging up all these years later, he's like, it's gotten bigger. Because now I'm like, it seems like they're really leaning into like nanotech, especially feels like, I mean, at least the way his suit forms later on, it looks like it was nanotech, kind of how it formed on him. But I don't know. We'll get to that later. But they were digging this ship up and trying to get answers for Clark, but it became terrifying, especially because I feel like that's the most imposing Jor-El we've ever seen. I'm like, yo, like the fact is he's wearing the cape and everything, which, you know, Krypton kind of showcased like the cape and everything is supposed to be symbolic of like, that's like his Clark's great grandfather, wasn't it Val? Was that his grandfather's name? I don't remember from the show Krypton, but it's like that, like he had the cape and everything. So I was wondering, like, because they've got it depends on the continuity and stuff like that. But like for him to be kind of floating too, which I'm like, obviously the Kryptonians don't have power without the yellow sun. So I was like, was that just how it was manifested? But it's like I said, he seemed big and imposing like that. Like it even has like the eye patch, like has a little bit of a Nick Fury thing going on, which I'm like, oh man, you look like a battle-ridden warrior. Because I always associate Jor-El as a scientist. I feel like most of Krypton is like that. But, you know, once again, looking at the show, we do see that there are different groups. There are the more behind-the-scenes officials and scientists, and then there's also, like, the Zods, who are the warriors. So I don't know if that's applicable across all continuities, but once again, I associate that with this TV show Krypton. But it was scary for Clark, especially because his mom was almost going to fall in, and so it's just like, right, I'm not going to look for any answers. His father's like, no, but we don't know what this is all about. But Martha's like, yeah, we don't, so we don't know what this could do to Clark. But for him, it's like, who am I and what am I? Like, does that mean I'm not your son if all of that's kind of connected to who I am and where I come from? And for him, it's like, if I come from something that's that scary. So he went his entire life never really pushing it. And Martha didn't want to push it. And so Jonathan didn't even want to push it either. So I thought that's so interesting to make it so like Clark doesn't find out about his lineage. And even now he's only in the beginning steps of his lineage at like, in his 20s, which I think is such an interesting dynamic aspect. But either way, back to present day, Jimmy and Lois are about, you know, trying to figure out who Superman is. And I love the whole, like, Jimmy's got his own, like, was it Flamebird or something like that? And he's doing, like, this, like, video for it. And it's, like, pitch black. And Clark walking in. It's like, why is it so dark in here? And he trips and falls on him. It's like, yeah, I got 5 followers. Could be 6 if you join. She's like, I'm not going to join your, like, weird, your like, crazy, like, conspiracy theory thing. So, but I think it's so interesting when Clark is like, right, should we really be looking into this? Especially a story that Perry hates. But Lois is like, right, this guy saved us. We got to figure out who he is. And especially at the same time where Clark is, you know, asking those questions about, well, who am I? So for him, he goes back to Smallville and he goes for answers. His mom's not, you know, once again, kind of his mom being a little doting, like, wait, why are you here? Like, are you okay? Checking his face. It's like, no, I'm okay, Ma. It's like, I want to learn about my past, but she's worried, like, what if it changes you? You know, what if I lose you? I don't want to lose you, which is, and I even love that it's like her talking to Jonathan, like, I don't like this, John. He's like, oh, it's not, you know, a son burying up his spaceship from his childhood. You know, it's kind of like normal for anybody. And she kind of gives him the stink eye. He's like, well, I'm not feeling so well. I'm gonna go inside. So, how that's manifested. Like I said, even the fact that the ship is bigger. But also what I think is interesting, I didn't talk about this earlier, was the fact is that he can't understand the Kryptonian language. Because obviously we've seen the Kryptonian language represented in the, like, written version of Kryptonian. We've seen the letters and the symbols, but we've never, like, obviously we know, like, I don't know if it, like, it's the symbol for hope, but I don't know if it's literally, that's always been my assumption, is like, it's a House of L symbol that represents hope, but in Kryptonian, it means hope, maybe. I don't know. I'm not, like, it's not that big of a distinction, but I've always leaned into, like, right, it's a symbol that means hope, not necessarily that it is Kryptonian for hope, but I think stuff has said it is Kryptonian for hope, so, because some stuff leans into, like, really explaining it, other stuff kind of leaves it at that, but like, I feel like I vaguely feel like I remember some stuff coming up about, like, obviously Kryptonians speaking a different language, so you need a modifying device to help learn the language, like, kind of like, translate it into English. I feel like that's come up before, but it's just like, that's a vague memory in my head. I just don't think it comes up that often where he really gets discussed. So, but yeah, he can't understand Jor-El, and Jor-El kind of gives him flashes of what happened to Krypton. And it seems like, based on what we're seeing, it seemed like Krypton was at war. I mean, even how Krypton explodes, it's like different based on the different continuities, whether it's just some stuff that they were doing on Krypton that led to it, whether it's a Brainiac situation, or, like I said, it seems like they were at war, which we know, at least on Supergirl, I don't know how documented this is in, like, the comic books and stuff, how much they cover it, but they're, was it the Daxamites? Was that their name? Mon-El's people. Like, the Mon-El's people and the Kryptonians did not get right. It might have been Daxamites. I might be confusing them with, like, a different, I feel like that's something else. That's not DC. I feel like that's something else, but I feel stupid for not, it feels like it's right, but I could be wrong. But yeah, like, Mon-El and in that case, Kara and Clark's people didn't get along. I think they were warring planets, but that's why I'm wondering, like, could that be what they're kind of going with in this continuity? But obviously Clark only gets bits and pieces of it, but he's like, wait, that was my past, are you, like, wait, did you take me from my mother, wait, are you my dad? And before he could really get any answers, he gets put in the suit. And I do like that they kind of did, like, all right, because a more traditional, like, modern day suits, I don't know about in the comics or not, whether they've gotten rid of it. I think the shorts, the underwear, is a very old school classic Superman thing. I don't know, like, maybe a golden or silver age, maybe most. Because, like, Man of Steel, like, Henry Cavill's suit doesn't have it. Tyler Hoechlin's suit doesn't have it. But his OG suit, the one that's from, like, the Action Comics cover that he has, like, the montage at the beginning of the episode, the opening section of that episode, has the red shorts, because that's more, like I said, it's an old school classic Superman. Because even people are wondering if James Gunn, I mean, maybe he's kind of put it out there or not, but whether or not he's going to go with a very classic Superman suit is what some people are wondering, and I guess it'd be kind of along these lines. Because something I never even thought about until, like, because I see the All-Star Superman, cover from time to time, because obviously there's aspects of it people are saying, like, James Gunn might pull from, but, like aesthetically and tone and feel-wise. But, like, it's like, right, the S on the chest, on the cape, and I was like, right. I kind of forget not every version of Superman has that. Because even, like, using Krypton, like, because Krypton has the, like, House of L sigil on the cape as well, as on the cape, so I was like, interesting. I guess, like, not many versions of Superman has it on, like, the chest and the back. I mean, it's kind of like Spider-Man, how, like, obviously he has, like, the small black spider in the front, and then on the back typically has the red spider, on the blue parts of the suit or whatever. So I guess it's just one of those interesting things, so. But I like that it, like, fully changes him, like, swoops up his hair and everything, kind of gives him a little bit more of a disguise. And at the same time, this is all going down. You have Lois and Jimmy, investigating this story, and I just like, so you like Clark? She's like, well, what? No, I don't like Clark. You know what I mean? Yeah, I like him in a professional sense, but I don't like him. Which I was like, you two are so adorable. I think that is, and that's always going to be an interesting thing of who, because it seems like, obviously in this continuity, obviously Clark likes Lois and Lois likes Clark. But, because sometimes I think in some continuities, it ends up being a thing of, hey, she kind of likes Superman, but she ends up falling in love with Clark. where it's like, right, it was kind of right in front of you. You spend enough time together. And then sometimes it kind of coincides where it's like, yeah, Superman's cool, but no, I already like someone. Like as we got with like Superman and Lois, how that kind of played out like, oh, Superman's cool and everything, but I'm already in love with someone else, you know? So that's always going to be an interesting thing, especially, but it definitely seems like that hasn't really come up yet, but I'm curious if that's going to be a complicated dynamic for Clark where it's like, oh, like, how does Lois feel about me? Like, she likes Superman, and, you know, for her to be like, yeah, but Superman, you're cool and everything, but it'd be interesting if they kind of did a Superman and Lois angle to it. So, but I think that's so cute. But I also, like I said, I like that Lois is who she always is. She's that person of like, yeah, she's got that gumption of like, I'm gonna go do this, and it's like, oh, I'm your boss, which means like, we're both interns. She's like, yeah, but raise your hand if you've been here longer than Jimmy has. Oh, look at that. I'm your boss. You know? But like kind of that pushy, like, I'm going to go for this story no matter what. Like I said, she's got that journalistic gumption. She's very gun-ho about it. And I love that it was actually Jimmy's lead that kind of came through because he got a picture of the boat and he knows like, right, boats that the woman escaped on. It's like, and if like they end up washed up anywhere, it's in this particular area, which led them to the right track because they found her, but it's the area she was hiding all the like tech and she had a place like rigged with explosives because she's being hunted down by people, which immediately I was like, are those people who work for like LexCorp or something? The reason why she's, like why they'd be coming out, because I was like, do we really know whose tech that is that she stole? Because it's tech she doesn't really know about, but later on Clark touched it and had a vision, which made me go like, I wonder, is that going to end up being like some, like what are they going to play with that? Like, is it going to be like some Kryptonian tech that someone got their hands on, or what? Because, like, the fact is, he touched it. He had a vision. It didn't seem like it was a vision of Krypton. It seemed like it was a vision of stuff happening here on Earth, but I could be mistaken. Like I said, I don't know what to fully expect for like a big bad, because of what I was reading somewhere is saying like, right, the show isn't going to focus too much on like the Superman persona is like part of the story, but it's about Clark discovering who he is. Like that's the biggest part of this story. So you're going to spend a lot of time with Clark with some, you know, obviously Superman stuff sprinkled in, but it's not the focus of his adventures. It's like him, it's like, oh, I'm Superman like all the time. It's like, no, like you got to ground that with the Clark stuff. So especially at a time when he's figuring himself out once again in that kind of the Batman era of just kind of how in that eventually Bruce is going to have to delineate between the shut-in Bruce Wayne that he's been to kind of create this playboy persona versus like Batman, so no one attributes him being the same person. So Clark's going to have to kind of do that in this series as well. But I do like the combination of talking about the suit again. I do like the combination of like it is like, oh, he got it from Jor-El, because I don't know where he typically gets it in like I said in Superman and Lois, he made the line of like, hey, my mom made it. I don't know if that's always the case or whether it's self-made. Once again, I'm sure it depends on the continuity. Once again, whether it's more modern era, whether it's silver or golden age. But it, you know, like I said, it had that Henry Cavill of it of like, I think this and Smallville did the whole thing of he got this suit from his dad, but in this case, it's like a little bit of both where it's like he got the suit from his dad, but his mom modified it with like the belt and the shorts. And it's like, oh, will anyone notice me? She's like, honey, I barely recognize you. Like, if I didn't know you were you, like, I wouldn't be able to tell that it was you, because he's a very different person because he's standing up straight. Once again, he is more confident. And so he rushes to save the day when his friends are in trouble. And Leslie's going up against that guy. And I'm like, who is this guy? Because I was like, well, it doesn't seem like a bad guy per se, because he is fighting her. And then she's stole some of the tech and she's utilizing it herself, which luckily Superman sweeps in to save the day. But it wasn't until the electricity started going wild and it started affecting her and she kind of went a little electro that I was like, wait. I was like, is she supposed to be Livewire? And I looked it up. Yeah, her character's name is, especially when the tech was taken away from her, I'm like, and you look at like the blue veins that are kind of running through her, I'm like, she's Livewire, isn't she? And I looked it up. Yes, Livewire's name is Leslie Willis. I was like, that's so crazy. Which I probably would have never gotten at if it wasn't for Supergirl. Because she was like a villain that had her. She popped in from time to time in Supergirl. I want to say her character died in season 3 of Supergirl, if I remember correctly. she probably popped up in other like Superman things, but like obviously like Supergirl was recent enough that it sticks out in my head the most. So, but yeah, I was like, I feel good being able to like, is that Livewire? Yeah, I nailed it. I was like, that's actually really dope. His first outing as well, his true outing as Superman wasn't like a full on like, oh, I won everything by myself, but it's like, no, he ended up kind of getting some assistance from that guy. To be fair, that guy's the reason why Leslie turned into Livewire. He kind of put her in that situation because he overloaded the tech she had on, and it kind of got absorbed into her. And for Clark, it's like, right, I'm not trying to hurt you, I'm trying to help you. And like I said, he took the device off and crushed it, but the effects are still already the effects. So she's permanently like that. But based on the ending, I was like, and she said, what didn't she say, like Task Force X? And I was like, it didn't even click on my head until I saw the people in there. I was like, he's like, oh, us, we're the good guys. And we saw the woman. I was like, is that Amanda Waller? Because it didn't even click in my head. I was like, right, Task Force X. That's her Suicide Squad situation. I was like, interesting. Because now they've got all these questions about the tech. That's why I'm like, is it Kryptonian tech that they acquired? And even them being like, didn't he say checkmate? I think he said checkmate, because I think that's like, I don't know if those are always different teams or it's the same team just under different monikers. Because I do know she has something to do with checkmate. It might have been one of the names he mentioned. I know it because I want to say, isn't that the grouping? Because I know she's played by Pam Grier, if I remember correctly, in Smallville. I think she was going by, I think the group was Checkmate in Smallville. I don't remember. Like I said, Task Force X and like Checkmate might actually be two separate entities that I'm lumping together as one. Like I said, I don't know if it's a delineation of like those are separate teams or just alternate names for the same team, like kind of like a League of Assassins, League of Shadows thing. Which now I'm wondering, I was like, is the League of Shadows just a I think that's that's a comic book thing too, because I know League of Assassins is how they delineate them in Arrow, but I'm going on this whole tangent. I'm sorry. But at the end of the day, Lois and Jimmy got their story and got the photo of Clark, and it's like, well, Superman is like, oh, like we're gonna put this on the front page, and it's like, right, they were able to do this. Sadly, Clark couldn't be a part of it. Clark's like, no, I knew you could do it. The fact is, you're smart, you're determined. So I had no doubts that you were gonna get this out. And I was like, they have the little cute moments. I think it's pretty dope. I even love the whole, like, once again, how, like, she's confident in other capacities, like, especially when it comes to the journalism and stuff like that, but on a personal level, she can be awkward and kind of dorky when it's just kind of like oh, yeah, Clark, I decided to come over because, I was going to call, but then I was like, why would I do that? And then I just started walking, and somehow I managed to find myself here, so I decided to come over, So it's really cute. But sadly, the byline wasn't, because it makes sense. They're not actual journalists, so of course they're not going to get the byline. There might be something written in there being like, oh, it's by Jimmy and blah, 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 but they're not the actual journalists. The people who wrote up the story, like one of the names is Kat, which Kat and Lois do have their rivalry, so I like that. I wonder is Kat Grant going to be like at least a recurring enough character in this? Obviously, I got to know her a lot in Supergirl, played by Clarissa Flockhart, but I'm curious if that's going to be something. That's interesting to know, like, right, she's a full-blown journalist, whereas Lois isn't. I don't know if they always come up at the same time, but I think it is kind of like that thing of, like, Lois ends up superseding her, like, career-wise, because she becomes, like, the most well-known journalist, so, which kind of plays into their rivalry and stuff, so. It'd be kind of cute if they kind of did like they did with Supergirl, because I don't know if this is ever in the comics, but in Supergirl, they make it seem like, Kat kind of has a thing for Clark, and it's just kind of like, oh, I can't believe you're wasting your time with Lois. Like, it's kind of that situation. So I'm wondering, is that something they're going to potentially set up in this or not? Like I said, maybe that's just like a Supergirl thing. Maybe that's not even like a typical, like, of Kat Grant and Clark. Maybe they don't ever have like that never turns into a complicated love triangle thing. I mean, I guess if anything, I guess depending on the continuity, maybe it'd be like a, Lana is always the old love. I don't think that ever comes into play present day. I don't think it's ever like a love and Lois and Lana situation. I think it's always like, right, Lana's the ex situation. So, but once again, the show continues to be fun and endearing, and I'm so excited to see where the next episode takes us with all of this. I believe I saw the title for the next episode, which is Interview with Superman, which is definitely going to be interesting to see how that plays out. See Lois's interview style, but once again, it could be like a Cat Grant, for example, who ends up being the one who actually gets to do the interview. We'll see. I also looked it up too. I could be wrong, but from what I saw, there are going to be 10 episodes for this season. So that's exciting. So either way, I'm excited to see what happens next. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.